there are some people who are online, who are attending Zoom meeting right now. They are going to do the relationship from YouTube Live as well. We are doing YouTube Live as well as our Zoom meeting is on. And I welcome everyone. And our admin, not yet there, but the and our admin. So I welcome so Manora is going to do so I will do Manora and then
the video point itself, right? Yes. I come from you. It's just from the video. Okay. Hello.
Namaskar everyone. As I speak and if my microphone moves away and you cannot hear me well, just do some sign like hold it closer to me and I will do that. We started with late. I want to leave sufficient time for question and answer. So what I will do is I will aim for 30 minutes. Okay? Just speak. It's very important that the speaker tells you how long he's going to speak. Otherwise we just don't know how long this is going to go on. It's not very pleasant experience. When we get into question answer session, please follow this. When you ask the question, just ask the question. It's like a one sentence. A good question begins with when, why, how, where, etc. Okay, don't give a long preamble and then ask the question. Okay, I do this day and night. I'm doing this for many years. Usually that's a waste of time. You're giving a preamble. Okay, many times you can just say few words and I can know your question and I can answer your question. Okay, so just please stick to the question. That way we will able to entertain more questions. That is the only reason I'm saying. So if we are giving a presentation, we always need some title. And so the title of my presentation today is Scientific Acumen in Puranas and Upanishads. In a broader way, you can think of this as a scientific acumen in Indian narrative or ancient Indian narrative, or you can say Bharatiya Grantha, Sanatan, Vangmay, whatever the word you find appropriate. Which means what? Which means all the Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, Darshana Shastra, all the Vedangas. Okay? So I will refer to some of them. To begin with, if you look at the top, number of you will recognize those two lines. They are from Bhagavad Gita. Okay? And now those are not next to each other. But the reason I pulled those is that the two things, two scientific acumen is Vijnana Buddhi. Okay? Or Vijnana Buddhi is what I really like to talk about. Scientific acumen is decent but somewhat crude translation. The two words I want to point out from the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Gita Upanishad, the very first word, Abhayam. One of the characteristics of a Vijnana Buddhi is to be fearless. Fearless. The person has to be fearless in order to have a Vijnana Buddhi. Alright? The second one is the last word that you see, Amanita, which means the person is humble. The person is humble to be wrong. The person is humble when some other people point out the defect or error in that person's research. So, Abhayam, the person should be fearless and the person should also be humble. Okay, so those are the two characteristics to have a Vijnana Buddhi. Alright, I'm going to hold this, plus I have to. So, because this is not interactive, in the sense you don't have a microphone, so I'm going to do slightly in a different fashion. If it was a somewhat better setup with no disturbance from outside there, I would have asked you to stand up and give me some input, but that may not be the easy thing with the background noise. But as you think about this, think of answers to these questions in your mind. Okay? Forget that Varna and Ashram. Can you in your mind replace that with scientific acumen or Vijnana Buddhi? Like, what do you know about scientific acumen or Vijnana Buddhi as it is given in ancient Indian narrative? Okay, so please forgive that Varna and Ashram there. What do you know, you as the individual? What do you know about the scientific acumen in Indian literature? What do you believe? What do you feel? And what do you do? Now, what I am going to show you is because this is what I have done this exercise with you individuals, just like you. I have asked them this question and asked for their input. So, I wouldn't say typical, but a most frequently given answer for the first question, what do you know? What do you know about scientific acumen, Vijnana Buddhi in Indian narrative? Usually, I hear these things. See if it resonates with what you might have thought, especially the young generation, okay? Because we hear that in the American context. You know, so what do you think? India might have developed zero, a decimal system. Some people may know that beyond zero. But usually, they say, but science was developed by Western Europe and later by America. How many of you have familiar with this kind of thinking, either yours or people surrounding you? Just raise your hand. Okay, then I know that you are at least listening to me too. Thank you. Okay. Now let's talk about what do you believe. Not each one of you, but see if it resonates with you. India might have done some good stuff in spirituality and philosophy, but otherwise backward as far as ingenuity, science and technology was concerned. Maybe hit and miss, maybe trial and error approach. There was no science until Western civilization figured it out. And typically, in defense of this belief, you will hear, hold on, cell phones, aeroplanes, steam engines, railways, computers, space travel, whatever, all on and on and on. Which of the light bulbs electricity, which of these was done by India? Something that you can back up with evidence, empirical evidence. Unfortunately, the direct answer is no, actually we don't have it, right? It's a Thomas Edison with the light bulb and so on and so forth. Does this ring a bell with you as in terms of the belief? Okay, for some of you at least. Let's look at the like feeling. Now everyone understands the difference between belief and feel. Feeling versus belief. For example, you may say, I believe it's the time for my dinner, typical time. Versus you may say, I feel hungry. You see the difference? Okay, so it's a belief based on some norm versus actually the feeling. See if this matches with some of you, or some of them matches with each one of you. Feeling indifferent, that's a certain response to it, to India's contribution or India's connection. Maybe feeling depressed, like how come in the world we didn't do something that we can be proud of, okay? Possibly sad, possibly emotional, maybe feeling helpless, like, I can give a better response to my non-Indian colleague at workplace to this when they show all the lists that I told you, aeroplanes, aircraft engines, and space shuttle. How many of you avoid the subject if discussion comes up? Usually, just say something and move on. The fourth question, very important. What do you do about it? Even suppose you know about it, or either way, like think, India didn't do anything, or yes, India must have done things, lots of things. The stories from Purana, possibly Trishanku, Vishwamitra sending Trishanku in the space, right? Kukudami. Everyone knows the story of Kukudami from Bhagavad Puran and the theory of relativity. No, I will not tell you that story today, but I would inspire you to read Bhagavad Puran and the story of Kukudami. But talk of decimal system and what Einstein said about Hindu number system. You may quote that. Do you know what Einstein said about the Hindu number system? He said all the modern science that's possible today would not have been possible without the Hindu number system. Maybe that's what we do, that's what we tell people. Maybe talk of Aryabhata and Ayurveda. Yeah, people bring Aryabhata. Look, do you know about Aryabhata, what he did and so on? Ayurveda, did you hear about Ayurveda? A very powerful medical system. Metal pillar, metal pillar that has not rusted for many hundreds of thousands of years, whatever, okay? Or the last one, ice, somehow just find a way, that's what you do. These are the generic ones, of course, I'm talking. Three messages I want to talk about. Three key magic things, okay? Oh, even you see that slide there. Okay, there is a way to get rid of this. Okay, better? Yeah. So three magic ingredients. That's what I want to briefly talk about. Again, of course, the idea is not to fill you with the information. That's not the idea at all. I cannot do that in 30 minutes. But the idea is to at least bring some inspiration, if I may. Okay, is there a way to remove from somewhere else? That's fine. Okay. Let me see if I. So the first one I want to talk about, what is the Vijnan Buddhi as given in our Indian literature? Two specific things, method and a sequence, and objectivity. Very important, because usually the Indian literature is thought in such a fashion that anything goes. People can interpret it any way they want. That's not true. Okay, you will see that. The second thing I want to talk about is logical reasoning skills. This is, guys, very important because I interact with, since I started researching this, I publish books, I start talking about it, I come across audience like yours all the time. When I get into question answer or when I discuss these things one-on-one, either face-to-face, social media, a significant and consistent thing I find among Indian community That's not to say that's the issue related specific to Indian community, but because the subject is related to Indian community and because I care about how Indians think, not that I don't care about how others think, I find this as a big drawback. I mean, it's frustrating how people cannot think logically. Of course, we are not taught logic. There is no course on the logic. Most of us, when we went to engineering or medicine or whatever it is. But there is a significant literature on how to think properly. And that's very important if you want to understand Vijnanapati and how it is given in Indian literature. So a toolkit, now you are popular these days with a toolkit. We need a toolkit, right? You know, different toolkits in other ways. Consistency is important, logic is important, and basic agreement in place is important before you actually get in debate with someone. Like many of my fans, they will get in a debate in social media with someone. They will, somebody will say something about the Aryan invasion, whatever, Ramayana, Ramasetu, whatever. They will respond, in defense of something. Then the other person asks something that these guys cannot defend, this person cannot. They write a note to me in social media saying, Nileshji, what should I say to this guy? I'm saying, why in the first place you bother to do a debate with a fellow if you are going to get shut down at the first question? Okay, don't do it. Do and still people can hear. Okay, excellent. I'm going to go the fast through this. I don't want to lose time on this. If we have a time in question answer, I may come back to this. So let's talk about quickly epistemology and ontology, the limits of our knowledge and acquisition of knowledge. Because that's what the science is about, right? We do science to solve problems. We do science to know something that we don't know. What I'm quoting you here is from something known as Sankhya Karika. How many of you have heard the word Sankhya or Sankhya Darshan before, right? So, sage Kapila, that's what we attribute to. Now, many people who work on the Sankhya, these are one of the 6 Darshana in the Indian Shastra. So, what is a Darshana? Because there is that philosophy, there is that Adhyatma, okay? And how do we practically realize it? For example, in Bhagavad Gita, there is a statement, Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam. Think of that Darshanam, okay? So, how we practically bring the philosophy, bring the metaphysical knowledge in a practical way. That's what this is about. So, Sankhya Karika, you can look at only the translation. He says these are our limits. We may not be able to know something because it is remote. It is what? Like too far away. Telescopic. Then we need telescopic ability. Something may be too close or too small. We need a microscopic ability. It's important. Then it talks about the sensory impairment, instability of a mind. Now, this will not solve your problem. But if you are in social media and sometimes you get frustrated, somebody says something totally idiotic statement, and you say, I don't understand why this person writes like this. Now you know the answer. Okay, it's the instability of a mind, sensory impairment, obfuscation, suppression, and so many other things. Just again look at the translation. This is what I mean by how this is not something make-believe stuff. The word, Sankhyadharika is saying, that is something you hear. You read somewhere in the newspaper, you hear it on the TV, and most of us would say, oh, I heard that. And because it's on the TV, because it's on a certain channel that you prefer, therefore it is true. That's not so. In fact, it says the heard, as in Shruta, like Shruta, is obvious as it is conjoined with impurity, corruption, and excess. Do you think Ishwara Krishna hundreds of years ago describing the modern television stations or newspapers? Okay. The superior and opposite of that comes from the discrimination of the manifest, the unmanifest, and the true knowledge of the true knowledge. Now, this is I'm quoting now from a Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Now, anytime you hear of Patanjali Yoga Sutra or yoga, what comes in front of your eyes? How many of you do yoga? Okay. So you know exactly what it is. At least what you consider yoga. What does it say? Close your eyes. Of course, there is a Hatha Yoga, like do Surya Namaskar, which is all great, right? Other asanas, meditation, close your eyes. That all you are doing to get ready for something like this. That is not the end of it, guys. And this is from Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Because once you know how to do dhyana, how to do dharana, how to do samadhi, all three together is known as the word that you are familiar, sanyam. Okay? Now you are not biased when you are trying to understand something, and therefore a correct understanding might be reached. Then if you want to understand about your earth, the whole ecology, our environmental stuff, do you know what Patanjali is saying? Bhuvanasnyanam Surya Sanyama. If you want to know about your earth, okay, you have to focus, that focus meaning that sanyam, on the sun. Now what does that focus mean? Do you stare at the sun? No, that's not the idea. Now you start studying everything about the sun and you will know about the earth. Why is that? Because sun defines the seasons. Okay, sun defines most of the things that happen on the earth. It's the most important factor. Bhuvanasnyanam Surya Sanyama. The next one is Chandre Tara Jnanam. If you want to know about the celestial, terrestrial, focus on sun. Study everything about the sun. If you want to know everything about the celestial sphere, focus on the moon, like moon's position, what it's doing, is it changing the path, and so on. Then it says Dhruve Tat Gati Jnanam. If you want to understand these cosmic motions, you have to focus on the Dhruva, okay, the one that doesn't move in a short time. Let's go to the second phase. So out of three things, scientific achievement, if I had a time, I would have talked about the 16 elements, the 11 elements, and so on. We might do that during question answer. The second factor is the logical reasoning or Tarka Shastra. Nyaya Darshana. How many of you have heard of Nyaya Darshana? Okay. And what I'm telling you through Darshana Shastra, you are going to find it into Puranas, you are going to find it into Upanishads. Again, because of time, I'm not going into some of them. Nyaya Darshana teaches you how to think properly. Very important. Don't assume that we know how to think. Okay. Let's look at the top. How many of you have heard of the term called Hitchens razor? Christopher Hitchens. How many of you have heard Christopher Hitchens? Just one, two, okay. And there is a Hitchens razor. What does that say? A claim made without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Even a better statement of that Hitchens razor is from Nyaya Darshana 4.2.29. Pramana Tashyartha Pratipatti. A thing can be established only with evidence. Serious. If you don't have evidence, don't open your mouth. The next one it says, pramana anupapatya upapattiyam. Which is to say, absence of evidence. Now, any Vedanta students here, by the way? Ananubhuti. Any Vedanta students? No? Okay. You there? Okay. So, but we can take our fight offline. This is joking, okay? This is Nyaya Darshana, very rationalistic science. This is Pramana Anupapatti Upapatti. If you don't have evidence, or rather, absence of evidence doesn't prove anything, doesn't disprove anything. Okay? And there is a word, there are some other wages like that, which perfectly match this thing. One of the things you might have heard is absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Okay? This statement includes that, but actually better. These are all scientific background guys, okay? Science is based on this. I'll skip that picture for a minute and come down. How many of you have heard Vitandava? Vitanda, everyone, right? Do you know what is the definition of Vitanda? A beautiful definition given by Rishi Gautam, again from Nyaya Darshan. Swapratipaksa Sthapana Hino Vitanda. Somebody, suppose now, number of you might know this, I established the timing of Mahabharata 55-61 BC, or for Ramayana at 12,290 BC. Now somebody says, no, I don't agree with that date. That's perfectly fine. That's a great thing. Actually, when there is a disagreement, there is a sanshaya, there is instability, and people discuss in a true spirit of increasing the knowledge, the growth of knowledge takes place. But in order to do that, in order to do a debate or a vada, the Krishna versus vada pravadasamana, you should have your own position. The person should have another date, like and why he or she thinks that is the year of Mahabharata, that is the year of Ramayana. So, Swapratipaksa Sthapana Vitanda. If you don't have your own position, but you are just criticizing somebody's position, then you are doing Vitanda. Quickly, the last one. The middle triangle that you are seeing, this is what I'm showing you in the middle, is the definition of a modern science. I don't know if you can read it, but keep focus if you can see that. The modern science that Karl Popper describes this as a triangulation, the middle triangle, of explanation, prediction, testing. That explanation is the evidence. Explanation, prediction, testing in the context of a theory, in the context of a background knowledge, to solve a tough problem, a toughest unsolved problem. You don't do science for fun. You do science because there is some problem that is not solved yet with existing theory. Okay? And last line there from Nyaya Sutra, what you see in the picture is exactly what Nyaya Sutra is saying. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Shabda, Pramana. You can see those fields there. I'll quickly get to the third point that I promised you. Tantra Yukti. Very important. So yes, you have a scientific acumen in the sense of Vijnana Buddhi. You also understand how to think properly. But how to actually solve a practical problem. Okay? Like suppose, flying off a plane. How to propel some instrument. How to build something. Whatever the issue. How to solve some medical condition. You need ingenuity. A very creative thinking. A creative way to try and be willing to fail. How to solve problems. I'm going to, I'm at 25 minutes. I'll take next 5-10 minutes and share you some examples that were done in Indian civilization, and then we'll go for question and answer. Embedding information about an historical event. For example, if you go to Valmiki Ramayana, what Valmiki did, as he's telling the story of Rama, as the events of Ramayana were narrated by Valmiki, he also introduced some information, and if we can decode that information, like solving a jigsaw puzzle, solving complex, it can tell us when Ramayana happened. For example, I found in Valmiki Ramayana more than 600 astronomy references, but what I'm showing you here, and I'm not going to read them to you. Actually, the 6 references did not show up here for some reason. But this picture has 6 references. Valmiki Ramayana has 6 references. They point to the 4 cardinal points. Remember, Bhuvana Dhyanan, Surya Sanyama? Okay, 4 cardinal points where sun needs to be. at the winter solstice, summer solstice, spring equinox, fall equinox, at the time of Ramayana, plus what were the pole stars, a North Pole star and a South Pole star at the time of Ramayana. So 6 references will take you conclusively to 14,000 years ago. I'll just say one. For example, the North Pole, if you can see this, two bright stars next to the word NCP and SCP, like this is Agastya, Canopus. And this one here is Abhijit, Vega, hello, Abhijit, Vega, or Brahmarashi. That was the pole star at the time of Ramayana. Like Brahmarashi, Visuddhasya, Siddhartha, Parmasya, Arjismanta, Prakashate, Dhuvam, Sarve, Pradakshina. Let's go to another example. So it was the ingenious method of using astronomy information so that people can decode and find out exactly when something happens. Let's talk about not many students left here, but let's talk about the value of a pi. Don't you see a big deal, especially in American education system in a classroom? Like my daughter would come home telling me, Daddy, do you know the value of pi down to like 6 digits or something like this? So what I want to show you is the practical and pragmatic approach of it. So when somebody takes this from Surya Siddhanta and that gives a value of 3.1623, immediately the people from the West who became aware of Surya Siddhanta, they would say, yeah, but that's a bit approximate. Actually, it's pretty darn good. But they say it's approximate. You know, it is approximate for a reason. Because the calculation they are performing is sufficient. For example, if you go to buy a cane sugar, you know, like, I don't know what you call, ganna or cane sugar stick. If somebody is selling in your town or village back in India, and suppose that person is selling by measuring with a hand, and he says, yeah, for a length of a ganna or a cane sugar stick, this much in length, you get it for 1 rupee. Is that a sufficient measure? That's sufficient. It's not such a big deal. It is a little bit more or less. If you are buying gold, that's not sufficient, right? Then you need more precise. And the more precise numbers are there. If you go to Aryabhatiya, you are going to get a bit more precise numbers, okay, for a different reason. Let me give you a third example. This is ingenuity par excellence. Now, this is a title given by me. If you can read the question below that. Anyone knows this answer? In fact, we can graduate that person today, you know, by borrowing somebody's, you know, the whole paraphernalia. What is the celestial radius in Indian astronomy? Anyone knows that number? No? Okay, number of you watch my lecture. The trick here is you have to watch the same lecture multiple times. Okay? And of course, I'm going to show you the number. Now I'm going to show you the number. I'm going to ask you what is so special about this number. So that number is, alright, the circumference of the earth in nautical miles. How many of you know that? It is equal to 21,600. Okay, if you don't know, you have to trust me that you can go Google it and find out. The nautical mile, you know, the nautical mile circumference at the equator is 21,600. Okay? Now I don't know if you are quick in math and you can do this in your head. But do you know where this number came from? This is in Google. This is in Wikipedia. You are going to see it. This came from India. Okay? And it's from Surya Siddhanta. And how did they figure this out, or why they decided this? Because if you take 360 degrees, just follow my logic, even if you don't like math, 360 degrees, okay, 24 hours, you can think in different ways. You divide that into minutes, and you divide that into arc minutes. It comes to 24 times 60 and all that. It will come to 21,600 arc minutes. Now, what's the big deal about it? Because the natural resolution of your naked eye, when you look at the sky, to separate things, is 1 arc minute. So why bother? What does that have to do with astronomy? India developed astronomy for what? Prosperity. If you ever wondered why India was a prosperous country, tremendously prosperous country. because of commerce, because of agriculture, and both of these require astronomy. So if you are going on a boat and you want to know middle of the sea where exactly you are, where you are heading, where is the rock, where is the island, where is the storm, what happens, you need to know exactly where you are. So a boat captain, okay, on an Indian boat, thousands and thousands of years ago, could look at this, look at it with a naked eye. Of course, they have binoculars, but that's a different subject. With the naked eye, they can look at this and decide with a calculation where they are. Now, let's do the backward calculation. 21,600 is the circumference, is equal to 2 pi r. Yes, some of you know the formula. So if you do the 2 pi r and use the reasonable formula for number for pi, the r you get is 3438. 3438, and that is the celestial radius used by Indian astronomers. When Western Europeans came across these numbers, they were laughing at the Hindus. They said, look at these idiots. You don't know when you look at the sky. How do you decide the celestial radius? How far up in the sky we have to go? And when did they figure out 3438? And what is the unit of that number? Well, there is no unit. The radius is 3438. Why? Because 3438 times 2 times pi will give you 21,600. That is the formula that you are using. You know that's the naked eye resolution. You can decide the position of the ship. Every time I don't know if I do something or not, but forces me to do it. And the latitudes and longitudes is a very reliable method. No matter where you are in the world. If you are on the sea, it works. If you are on the land, it works. Okay, that's the beauty. Let me show you one more demonstration. What is the most, let me ask you the question. What is the most successful theory of modern science? If anyone knows what is the most successful theory of modern science, you can raise a hand. I mean, I may not be able to hear with the background noise, but any most successful theory? Gravity. Okay? No, yeah, she can try. So she doesn't get to answer the question. It's related to gravity, but gravity is the one outcome of that theory. It is the theory of cosmology. Okay? The planet, Earth, Moon, their motions, and the whole modern science, the beauty of modern science. I mean, you think of modern science, what are some of the names you hear? Or some of the names that come to your mind? Einstein, Maxwell, Newton, Kepler, Galileo, Copernicus, right? That's all. What are they working on? Why are these planets moving like this? And can I figure it out? And so on. Okay, so most successful theory of modern science is cosmology. And do you know what is India's contribution to it? I'm just going to show you some through pictures. How many of you have heard the Western argument in the circle that Indians learned their astronomy from Greece? How many of you have read it or heard about it somewhere? Right? Utter nonsense. Just as an example, I'm showing you, this is a Greek model on the other side. And remember that number 3438 here. Until Western Europeans came in contact with Indian astronomy, they did not figure out a way that you can write a mathematical formulation to predict the position of a planet. Until then, it was only about the geometrical arrangements and empirical data of the past. This is the mathematical arrangement to actually find out the position. Do you see those circles? The epicycles also existed in Greek, okay? But they also existed in Indian astronomy. But something different in Indian astronomy. Do you notice what it is? Look at the size of the circle that you see in the Indian model. What is it? They are changing. They are known as pulsating epicycles. Okay? Dr. Anil Narayanan has done a great work on this. He is based in Washington, D.C. You may want to invite him for your Itihas Manch, Anil Narayanan, and I'll give you the contact information. Pulsating epicycles. Do you know what pulsating epicycles are doing? This is thousands of years before the modern science began, so-called modern science began. The pulsating epicycles are simulating the elliptical orbit of the planet around the sun. Indian new elliptical orbit. If I had time, I would have shown the other civil. Again, don't look at the technical one, but look at the column number 2 and 3, the Greek model versus Indian model. See if you can relate to it easily. If not, I'll skip this page. Indian model is very consistent. It builds on the previous thing, and it just gets complicated, but more accurate, more precise. So you decide how far accurate or how far precise as you want, and you can decide to stop. Like a mathematical series, for example. Quickly, maybe one or two. Prosperity. I talked about prosperity, and I said the astronomy was required for agriculture. Now, what does agriculture do? It takes care of our shuddha, satisfies our hunger. Now, if you have a surplus, what do? Like America does that now, right? If you have a surplus, then you want to sell it to others, and in commerce become prosperous, right? Now, if you also do commerce, you need to be able to reach other places efficiently and so on, which means you need ways of surveying and therefore navigation. How many of you know that how old do you think is the navigational history of India? Like if you think you want to guess a number, raise a hand and you can show me some fingers or something. How old do you think? I mean, somebody, give me some answer. How old do you think? 10,000? 14. Very good. Okay, very close answer. Can you look at Ravindra Joshi ji there and give him a big hand there? Okay. Actually, it's more than 16,000 BC. That's not to say that 60,000 is the limit of it. But before that, the evidence is getting washed away. How many of you are from Tamil Nadu? Anyone from Tamil Nadu? Nobody? Tamil Nadu? Okay. Pompuhar. Of course, he's an ardent watcher of my YouTube movies. Yeah, YouTube lecture. This is the 2020 research where Pompuhar, what you see is if you go inside the sea, right now the sea is here, Pompuhar. But if you go inside the sea, you see series of ports, very sophisticated ports that existed in Rome and Rome and Greece like 20,000 years ago. Equally sophisticated or more sophisticated. They existed in India. One evidence is from Pompuhar, going back to more than 16,000, more than 18,000 years, more than 20,000 years. When the sea water rise, that port was gone, they built another port, like C2. Then sea water is rising for last 20,000 years, then they built C1, okay, and so on. So there is I'm saying there is a supporting this navigational history with the antiquity of astronomy. You follow? Now talk about agriculture. Somebody else. How old is agriculture in India? Anyone wants to take a guess? And we are almost done. Since you are making patience now. How old is agriculture in India? Take a guess. Make me feel happy. More than 15,000 years. Okay? And your name, sir? Sujesh. Can you look at him and give a big hand? Okay. Very correct number, more than 15,000. There is in a very nice way, setting Ravindra ji also. Okay? Actually, that is true. Very solid evidence of Indian agriculture more going back to 16,000 BC. But also, listen to this, in Sri Lanka, which was connected to India, if you go back beyond it, going back to 40, this is yesterday. I'm not just randomly saying a number. 43,000 BC. And in case you are wondering, this has been done by millions of no. This is published in peer-reviewed papers multiple times, multiple places. Only we care to read 43,000. So now you see the antiquity of astronomy, antiquity of navigation, antiquity of agriculture, bringing prosperity to India, going back to those times. Okay? I'm almost done. what is the value of wisdom and prosperity if you cannot enjoy it? Which is to say, if your health is not good, even payasam doesn't taste good. You are not even allowed to eat it, if your health is not good. So, Indian civilization also addressed that. How many of you know that the vaccination originated in India? Just one hand, two hands, three hands, like that. Okay. Just a quick timetable. So, if those of you who think it did not originate in India, if you hear of vaccination, what is the immediate person's name that comes to your mind? Edward Jenner. Yes, vaccination. Edward Jenner. I'm going to show you the timeline. Edward Jenner was born in 1739. He became Dr. Jenner in 1792. He did not start working on vaccination until 1796. Okay, he was experimenting from 1792. 1796, cowpox experiments began. Now, if you look at the history of vaccination, inoculation, there are many different words might be used. British people in India have written a documented evidence that they say Indian method of vaccination, inoculation goes at least back to 1500 and more likely much longer than that. Okay. Now, when Europe was looking at smallpox, for example, as an inflammation of the skin, and they were providing the treatment to treat the inflammation of the skin, and therefore a mistreatment and people were dying. During that time, many British officers working in India looked at the inoculation for smallpox method done by Banaras Brahmins, Vrindavan Brahmins into parts of West Bengal, which they were controlling. And they said, for example, Dr. Robin Ford, right from India to Royal Society, saying, thanks to the native method of inoculation, we, the British, haven't lost a single life through the smallpox epidemic that the West Bengal experienced. Okay. And Dr. Halway in 1767 wrote a very detailed report on how they used the vaccination. And yes, after Edward Jenner came up with his cowpox experiment, and the credit should be given for what he did. He had a lot of resistance within the Europe itself. People were not willing to do it. In fact, the only people who immediately took to Edward Jenner's method were the super rich and super poor. Super poor had no method, no way to pay the money, and super rich knew that if they don't survive, they cannot enjoy their prosperity. The middle class of the Europe was very dogmatic, and for a long time they did not accept Edward Jenner's method. But what is interesting is after 1796, immediately British banned the native Indian method of inoculation in India, 1802. And by the way, now you may not be able to read this, as late as 2012, 10 years ago, there are papers written in a peer-reviewed journal by Western Europeans, Americans, British, whoever, still denying the role of India in vaccination. Okay, you can find those papers, of course I have them. Quickly, rhinoplasty. Everyone knows what rhinoplasty is? No? Like a nose job? No? Right? But do you know where it came from? Now it's the obvious answer, from India. It comes in a Sushruta Samhita. I'm going to go fast. The method was known as the Indian method. Okay, 1816 and so on. Until it went there from Pune, like two British officers saw operations performed on the nose on the streets of Pune by a potter. And they just wrote a report to Royal Society. And after that, it became so popular in Europe, the books were translated. In fact, rhinoplastic is a German word. The books were written, translated, different languages, and that is when the European Society or British Society for Surgery was formed. I'm going to go very fast to this. This is from a Sushruta Samhita, which I have shown that the Sushruta was definitely more than 8,000 years ago. That's not a subject today. But from that Sushruta Samhita, what you are saying here is the description of a rhinoplasty. Step by step, what you do. Sorry, I've gone a bit over time, but it says that we do have a time. So that's good. This is step by step system. Step by step, how to perform rhinoplasty, given in Sushruta Samhita. Now, some smart person is going to say, but hold on, that is not going to be sufficient for me to perform the surgery. And they are right. But remember, this is like a pocket book. This is like a person who is already a physics expert, double PhD in physics, and somebody is writing E equal to x square. Okay? The person knows exactly what to do with E equal to x square or s equal to ma. Frankly, if you do the translation, you will find how detailed this is. Okay? This is from Sushruta Samhita. And Sushruta Samhita, which I have again shown that it is at least 5,000 plus years old. Now, Sushruta is more than 8,000 years old. Now, can you combine these two together? Is this possible that Sushruta is more than 8,000 but Sushruta Samhita from only 5,000? Not possible. No, it is possible because it's a medicinal text. So Sushruta wrote it, but after that, his disciples and many other medicinal practitioners, they updated it. Because when the rutus change, the seasons change, the treatments change. Because the Ayurveda Acharya must know astronomy, cosmology, geology, seasons, climatology, and medicine. Okay, not just that. These are the instruments that are described in Sushruta Samhita. That at least goes back to 5,000 years, and Sushruta goes more than 8,000 years. And let's see, I don't know what I have on the next slide. I created it, but I forgot what it is. So, some element of European superiority, I just want to show you. British. So, rhinoplasty went to Britain. Okay, they started using it. Initially, they called it Indian method. Very, very popular. But look what the British journal, medical journal in 1895 has to say. To criticize the subject matter of this work meaning Sushruta Samhita. To criticize the subject matter of this work in detail would be labor wasted. Its interest is rather antiquarian than scientific. And what it is now a border to translate it. But it is but a collection of complex paragraphs prescribed according to a fanciful and erroneous methodology is practically useless. You make some connections with this, what is the mind is doing. Now, fortunately, there were some sensible souls there, okay, like J.C. Karki, for example. So when he read that, and there was a lot of debate in Europe, he actually went on a fact-finding mission. So he connected with his British friends, himself British, in India, and asked them, right, all these reports coming from India, are they true? And some of those people did do the investigation on his behalf and did write things like this. I'm just showing you a demonstration. I'll just read it, and you can read it too. I did myself the honor to write to Sir Charles Mallet, who had resided many years in India, who obligingly confirmed to me the report that this had been the common operation in India, that's referring to rhinoplasty, from time immemorial. Or other example, Mr. Lucas, an English surgeon who was stationed in India, by the way, was in several instances successful in the operation, which he copied from the Hindu practitioners. The British have no hesitation in using the word Hindu and even giving a credit to Hindus. If somebody asks you our identification, we kind of hesitate to use the word Hindu. We feel more comfortable with the Indian, like suddenly I don't want the label or something like that. Okay, but that's our tragedy for whatever reason. Let's see. Okay. All right. So this is my last slide, I think. What are the challenges? I covered 3 points, and I'll do the summarizing also. If you look at Samshaya, it's a very good thing. But there is Sausha of different kind. Sausha for mind is very bad. Sausha for buddhi is great. Shraddha, again, it can be sattvic, it can be tamasic. And curiosity, for example, when you get into question answer session and people ask a question, now of course I won't have a time to ask that. But if you are asking a question, not just to me in general, we have to answer the question, if I solve that problem, what is the benefit to me or to humanity or to a country or to some problem? If there is no benefit, there is no point asking the question. For example, what was the height of Bhishmacharya? I mean, it may be relevant to someone, but if you cannot tell what are you going to do with that height and what problem is going to solve, don't waste time, right? We have a limited resources, limited researchers, no money, practically no money. Don't waste a researcher's time asking that question. Don't waste your time even thinking about it. So, for example, Shraddha is important, Samshaya is important, Jijnasa, curiosity is important, but it should be Saprayojana and Sandikta. Because there is a doubt in your mind and there is a reason why you have a doubt, and you also know if you solve the problem, what is the benefit, then only work on it. Shankaracharya uses that word. Adi Shankaracharya uses that word, Saprayojana and Sandikta. The Samshaya should be because of that. Okay? So the bottom left-hand corner leads to destruction. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Ajnasya ashraddha dhamasya samshayatma vinashyati. Because there is a Marathi group. Nase jnana nase shraddha samshayi nasala pura. Okay? What are our challenges, for example? A is a mukti, like we want mukti, but we don't want shuddhi. We want shakti, but we don't want bhakti, because bhakti is required to get the shakti, and bhakti doesn't mean just chanting guys, by the way, okay? We want the punya phala, we are not necessarily interested in the punya, because to do punya, it takes tapasya. Quick summary, three magic ingredients: scientific acumen, Tarkashastra, Tantra. Hindu contribution to the world of science is original, is original, fundamental, deep and diverse. Modern science is a small chapter from Hindu Darshan Shastra. If you want to make business, study Hindu Darshan Shastra, Vaisheshika, Sakya, Yoga, Nyaya, Purvanishkar, Mimamsa, which is Vedanta. Read books by Sir Karl Popper, Yelay Show, Raju Malhotra, Shiva Shastri, Premendra Puridarshi, and many others. Contribute via buddhi, manushari, intellect, emotion, physical efforts to your Swadharma, wherever you are. Okay. Last one. Many people say, many people ask the question, where should I start? I just start with Shraddha. When people usually, mostly Indians, I would say, because I also talk to non-Indian audience. And frankly, I will tell you, they come with the Shraddha, unless like they are extreme leftists or something. But usually those extreme leftists are found in India too. Okay? Shraddha is very important. You may question it afterwards. But before even you question, do you understand what the person has said? Do you comprehend what the person has said? Then virya is like a strength. You need that to do tapasya. Smriti, you need to build a background knowledge. Read lot, understand. And then prajna, sharpen your intellect, which means try solving problems. And I told you, the science talks about the triangulation. In Bhagavad Puran, Krishna talks about quadrangulation. Krishna is more demanding. Krishna says triangulation is not enough. When Krishna is telling Uddhava Gita, he is saying pratyaksha, trust. So there, Shruti, pratyaksha, aitiya, anuman. Okay, so you need a triangulation, you need a quadrangulation. Shruti, pratyaksham, aitiyam, anumanam, chatushayam. You need a quadrangulation. Otherwise, what happens? Your knowledge is never certain. If you want to get certain knowledge, you need the quadrangulation. And I'll just end with the statement from Buddha Upanishad. It says, Satyena lapyas tapasa yeshatma samyak jnanena brahmacharena nityam antasharire jyotirmayo hi sudho yam pashyanti yataya shila. Okay, four things. You want to know the Atma, the ultimate thing. You have to know the truth. How do you get to know the truth? Through a lot of effort, meditation, contemplation, thinking, and a balanced attitude. And what is your objective? It's the exactly same objective which is the objective of modern science. Modern science never claims, I have found the ultimate thing. It says we might have found the truth or the best approximation to the truth. Our goal is to do what? Eliminate error, reduce error, right? Right? That's what it talks about everywhere. Even in the computer programming, you have the floating, how you decide where to stop or something like this. That's the last word. It's very practical, pragmatic. It says yam pashyanti yataya kshena dosya. You can never eliminate your error. All you can do is make the error small, small, and small. That is from Mundaka Upanishad, and on that I will stop. And we can get into questions and answers. Thank you. They will not able to ask questions, right? They will be able to talk. Okay.
कोणाला क्वेश्चन्स आहेत का ऑनलाईन? झूममध्ये कोणाला क्वेश्चन्स आहेत?
Maybe type. There's one something in the chat.
Yeah.
No sound? Oh, maybe by meeting. Sorry.
Any books he recommends, Mr. Oak?
Hold on. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, ma'am.
Do you recommend any books to read?
Okay. I will repeat that question for you. Question came from here. Do I recommend any book to read? My simple advice that I learned a very hard way after giving different and I think wrong advice for 10+ years. I said start with Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
And it may sound like I'm just giving some answers so that it will make everyone happy. No, not true. Start with Bhagavad Gita. I think, and start studying in the whichever fashion you want. Next question you might ask is which Bhagavad Gita. I said if you have one at home, start with that one. It will take you to the next one. Eventually you will end up reading like a translation and commentaries by 10 different people. Bhagavad Gita will point you to something. For example, one day it will click in your brain and you say, oh, Adhyatma Dhyana Nityatam Tattva Dhyana Atha Darshanam. Now you say, what is this Darshanam? And you may start looking at the Darshan Shastra, Sankhya, Vaisheshika. In English, depending on your background, I would suggest books by Sir Karl Popper. So like conjecture and refutation, the scientific method, the logic of scientific discovery. Okay, so many others. Darshana Shastra, Ishvara Krishna's Sankhya Karika, that's what I mentioned. But again, a simple advice, start with Bhagavad Gita, and if you study hard enough, it's going to, Bhagavad Gita will tell you, I'm telling you from my experience, which next book you should read. That is my experience. Thank you. Any questions from the online folks? Otherwise, we'll go locally here. All right, we are going locally here right now. If you have questions, either just type in the chat. That is the best way, guys. Okay.
The Indian viewpoint of science, we think the validation method is more subjective, whether it be using objects compared to Western science.
So I will repeat the question. So is your question, is the Indian way of validation more subjective in comparison to the West? The Indian method of validation is much more objective and much more broader than the method of the West. For example, all the Shat Darshanas, the West will stop at the empirical, but empirical of the matter. So if we get into emotions, now that it's expanding. The Western science is also expanding with the behavioral science and whatnot. Neuro, you can put it there, and when somebody has certain emotion, you can try to detect it. But the pragmatic approach of an Indian Darshana Shastra, for example, is we cannot wait for a science and technology to catch up to solve the problem. Because problem is now. I'm facing the problem right now. And I need to come up with some makeshift solution. That's how Ayurveda also works. Sometimes people get frustrated with Ayurveda. Actually, that is true in the modern, allopathy also. What does the allopathy guy do? Gives you one prescription and says, let's meet after a month. Okay? So, but the answer is no. It's a very objective. Now, it's a broader. Indian Darshana or Indian science is comfortable with the validation of one, right? Or Atma Praman. Now, see, you have Atma Praman. Again, we had a time and it's not very relevant if they digress. I can tell you about my some experiences. Now, my experiences does not include levitation experience, by the way. Okay? But their experience is very important to me. They have served me in a very meaningful way. Okay? It will be a total digression and not worth, I will have to tell you a lot of background. But these are the experiences that will not be captured, not be validated by modern science. Okay? But Atma Praman is sufficient. Now, what Indian science will also say that if you have an Atma Praman, that is not sufficient for you to start preaching to others. So you therefore, there's what you call, some people here, knowledgeable people here, they can talk about Shastra Praman, Guru Praman, Atma Praman. You need a triangulation of that. Whatever experience I had, before I start talking about to others as a guidance, I should ask, did any one of you have similar experience? Like we talk of intuition, or we talk about something similar. Then we go to Shastra, our ancient narrative. Did these people have similar things? Then we may feel a bit more confident. In the Avayava, that I told you 5-step method, or Pratyaksha Anumana, Upamana, Shabda Pramana. If you go to Nyaya Darshana, anyone from a Jain background here? Jain background? Okay. You have studied. I said, when did Table become Jain? Okay. So you studied, they talk of 5 methods, 5 steps. Jainism added 5 more to the Avayava. Very beautiful. Again, that's a digression. So, Atma Praman is sufficient. Empirical, it's super empirical also. Lot of collection of data and then using that data. Fine. Yeah, anyone else? And then we can come back also. Okay.
There was a background something about it. Why wasn't rigor and education available for wider population?
Okay. So if I understand the question, why was this knowledge not popularly available, popularly taught for thousands of years somehow going? Partly it has to do with the Indian way of thinking. Like every Indian or every Sanatani, by definition, is a seeker. Okay, mumukshu, which means you have to initiate. If you are lazily sitting and expecting that somebody like the way you do in the school now, forcefully you must come to school, is there a echo? Forcefully, like saying you must study daily, and the person is saying, I'm not good at math. Why do I have to do all this? So therefore what happened is, people decided what they want to study. Like in some of you may not be here for my previous lecture, when I talked about Balagandharva and Master Krishna Raj and their common guru. Common guru asked one student not to practice like the other students, because the other student was being prepared for singing in the drama, musical drama. The first one was being prepared for doing a khayal type, like Hindustani dance. Okay? I have seen even in our time, so it's not like the knowledge is lost. I know some Pathashala, and I'm connected with them in some fashion, where a student, actually a 10-year-old girl, we met her in India 4 years ago. He went there to study Vyakaran into that Pathashala. It is between Mumbai and Goa. And the teacher, after he taught her for 3-4 months, he said, you still study Vyakaran, but you are more suited for Nyaya Darshana. So it's just like, we sometimes do the analysis and we say you are good for doing something career in medicine. You are good for doing you are good for doing career in engineering. You are good for doing career in law. Something like this it was there. So knowledge was actually not lost. Through some resistance there might be some ups and downs. But we have to stick it. We have to stick it. I mean, many people, I don't think you guys, but I get that experience. Many people truly feel that when they come to listen to someone, say like me or anyone other, they are doing favor to the speaker. Now, I thank you for coming and listening to me patiently. Yes, you are doing favor to me, otherwise I will be talking to myself. But the point is that speaking attitude must be established. The knowledge is always existing. Even there are some schools right now willing to do that. They do that.
We shared a about how the ocean a new police. When we see around nowadays, the water level increasing, what was the rate? The general question: what was the rate of that ocean increase, and is it connected with the global warming trend we see nowadays?
Yeah. Great question. I'll quickly repeat the question. So I talked about water level rising for last 20,000 years and the Pumpu was going underwater. What were the factors and what was the level? I mean, what was the rate or acceleration of the level rise? We can take offline, but the correct answer of that, it would, if I have to give it, and I'm not exaggerating, I will say 5 days. I'm willing to do it. If Chicago guys arrange the course, 5 days, 8 to 5. I'm not kidding at all. To bring the research together, I'm talking of close to 200 peer-reviewed research papers published in last several years. The data is so rich, so fascinating. I'm going to give you a 1-minute answer. So, water is rising around the world for last 20,000 years. But it's not like a smooth rise. There are something called CRE, catastrophic rise event. One of my alumni, colleague from University of Alberta, Paul Blankman, Dr. Paul Blankman, he has shown 3 specific events. One event happening just after Ramayana, another event around 11,000 BC, or 11,000 years ago, 9,000 BC, and the third significant event in 5525 BC, the exact year for study and destruction of Krishna's Dwarka, where on the west coast, only west coast.
Volume gila.
And the second one, what book you would suggest? Well, I don't know if you were paying attention when I was saying this. Start with Bhagavad Gita. On any subject, you mean? No, again, I will just start with Bhagavad Gita because Bhagavad Gita is the essence of everything. And when I'm just saying this, it may appear like a simplistic answer. Maybe when I gave that answer 10 years ago, it was a simplistic answer. Like I'm a sales guy, so I have answer for everything. Okay? But no, now I am convinced, I will say, after saying it. The answer is Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita will take you to the right next book. If I say start reading Rig Veda with Katavarikan translation, I can assure you, you will be bored before you are done with 2 pages. But if you start with Bhagavad Gita and then it inspires you to read Rig Veda, you will be fascinated. Thank you. Yeah.
The mention of for that to be, I think that the lack of evidence to be pursuing is not there, so we should accept there.
Okay, great question. I will put that question. So in Valmiki Ramayana, we have a Pushpak Viman. Now, there is no physical, archaeological evidence or a manual evidence, like how the history works and so on and so forth. So just because there is a lack of evidence, physical evidence, should we accept Pushpak Viman? Correct? That's your question. I quoted Nyaya Pramana, Anupapatti, Upapatti Dhyana. Absence of evidence is not useful for proving something or for disproving something. So, Schrodinger's cat and Schrodinger's cat. So, Pushpak Viman question, everyone knows Schrodinger's cat? Okay, yeah, some of you know, but I'll not tell you that story. So, the Pushpak Viman question, as far as the empirical proof is concerned, should say like a Schrodinger's cat. We don't know whether it's a live or not. Now, remember, Pratyaksha Anuvada Upamana Sabda Pramana. The beauty of Indian science is why it asks for quadrilateration, triangulation. It is not crazy, it is not dogmatic. It says in some cases, a single Pramanic position. For example, I want to know your name. Right? I say, hi, my name is Dinesh, what is yours? You tell your name. Now, how many times and how many people I need to go and ask that is he telling the truth? No. Right? And you will see that in the Darshan Shastra. For example, you are walking somewhere and a river comes by. You come across a river and a cowherd boy is grazing the cow and the water is flowing and you want to ask that person, is it okay to cross the river here? Will I be able to cross it? And the person says, yeah, it's pretty shallow, you'll be very safe right now. Now, how many more people I need to ask before I take the risk and cross the river? Do you think you will trust that cowherd boy? No, depending on your desperation. Some people say no. I'll give you a practical example. By the way, I was a corporate trainer. I was doing other jobs for General Electric for a very long time. All my career, I was doing other jobs, but I was always a corporate trainer. And I used to teach this point. I used to ask the question, and I'm going to ask you this question. What is the mileage at which we need to change the oil in our engine? These days it has changed. It used to be 3,000 miles. Now it is a 5,000 miles and bigger, right? So then I ask the question, next day you get into your car in the morning and you have a nice record, usually a sticker there, right? When is your next oil change? You look at that number and you look at the number of the odometer. And if this number is higher than that, like by 20 miles or something, and it's a time for oil change, in fact you have gone above it, how many of you will jump out of the car and say, I'm not driving that car? Anyone? But I'm telling you, in General Electric, people with typically 2 degrees that I was training, people with executive positions, when I would ask to a group of 30, at least 5-6 people will raise their hand. I can talk about the gender too, but I'll not go there. Okay? Who will say, no, I will not drive that car? That goes to your sense of risk. That will change. My point is, you must cross the river, otherwise make your judgment. The cowherd is there, you ask him, he says, yeah, it's a shallow here. The person is from that area, you trust the person, you cross the river. Now, they may be true or false, that's fine. So, what's your choice? What's your alternate? Like, call few more people, statistically do the thing, nothing. So, Shabda Praman is sufficient in many cases. Sometimes, for example, Srimad Bhagavad, you know what it says? I mean, we have a Chinmaya book here. Srimad Bhagavad says, Pratyaksha Anumanabhyam. Okay? So, for example, Atmano Guru Ratmayeva Purushasya Visheshata. The greatness of a human being is this. Okay? Or a special seeker. Atmano Guru Ratmayeva Purushasya Visheshata. Ya Pratyaksha Anumanabhyam Shreyo Savadu Lingate. If you understand how to use Pratyaksha and Anuman together, which is what? Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Sabda, Pramana. You can be your own guru. That's what this Sanskrit word says. Okay? So, I mean, that's kind of your answer. Like, so, one more answer. So, Pushpak Viman, I would say we don't have a way to test the issue. How many of you have read all the descriptions of Pushpak Viman or some descriptions of Pushpak Viman from Valmiki Ramayana? How many of you have done that? Thank you very much. Who else? If you read it, you will be surprised, you will be amazed to find that actually those all descriptions of Pushpak Viman match with what we know today of modern aeroplanes. If it's a magic, just an imaginary aeroplane, it would have landed anywhere. It would have started from anywhere. It's like you just go there and it would have gone. No. It had pilots. Okay, it talks about, it says some specific words. It also talks about when it took off, it made a big noise. It also talks about the air current used to make it unstable. Now, that is not a proof, but you will definitely agree. I mean, all of us here will agree. But even the Professor Hopkins and or Howard in Columbia Bakery gang, they also agree that Valmiki Ramayana is at least 2,000 years old. There were no aeroplanes that time that could mimic this behavior. So there is some truth in it. Our ability to validate that truth changes with what? The growth in science and growth in technology. Now the genetics have come up. Now what has genetics done to our mutation? It's gone now, right? So that may happen. We don't know. Excuse me. Question here. Yeah, and I'll come to you. Sure, sir. What? Pushpak Viman. Okay, great question. So, Pushpak Viman is Valmiki Ramayana. It is mentioned afterwards. In fact, in Valmiki Ramayana itself, it is mentioned. Vibhishan was willing to offer it to Rama. And Vibhishan said, anytime you need a ride, you can borrow my car. So he has said that, and Rama declined the opportunity. Okay, anyone from UP? No? No, I will say those who will go. But just kidding, guys. Okay? No, he declined the offer. And then he says, do you know who was the original owner of Pushpak Viman? Was Kubera. Ravana has snatched from Kubera, his stepbrother and all that. So Rama says to the crew, now take it to Kubera. And the story says it went there, and we don't know what happened after that. Just so that you know, there are descriptions of Pushpak is not a very rare occurrence of an aeroplane description in a Indian literature. Even in the Mahabharata, like Upanishad had an aeroplane. You will like this story. Upanishad, he had an aeroplane, he was flying the aeroplane, and he was looking at, so he was in low flying. When he was low flying, he looked at the beautiful lady below. what we call Mughal influence, and he fell down from the plane. That's what Mahabharata describes. So aeroplanes are there in everywhere. The descriptions are there.
Just to add, is one, and there are two versions of Viman. And according to that, 1897, Tirupati tried fly the plane in Bombay Chowpatty. That was published news in Times of India. And he failed. At the same time, right with the star. And right with the star. The right with the star, how the and that's the point in that way. So this is second school is that. Therefore, something moving forward, do the research about moving more the science, moving more not the science.
Yeah. I'll just quickly repeat what you said, maybe the audience may so Saraswati, Shivaji Bapu, he, and actually based on his knowledge, with his own funding or academic of funding, it was an unsuccessful attempt. Some people say maybe was successful. He built a prototype called Marusakha, and he tried to fly in Mumbai. Okay? So he did that. And of course, the second text you might have wanted to mention is the Bojarai, like MP, the Marwar King. And he has written a text on the aeronautical things and how the aeroplane should be built, how the wood that is used should be light and filled with the fence and so on. So stuff exists. The mistake we should not do, which I see in social media, so people will refer to Sarpade, they will refer to oil, and we can start saying that we had dreamliners. So we make a joke of ourselves. I mean, it's perfectly okay to say that Indians in their psyche, in our description, in our Itihas, because Ramayana Mahabharata is Itihas, we have a description of ourselves. It's perfectly okay to say, somebody says, what you are living to do? And we should tag it because we don't know. How will we know? I don't know. That's perfectly fine. So there is a lot to learn from the mentor. They will be very comfortable saying, I don't know. In fact, when I came to Canada, any question you ask, at least that time, 30 years ago, before they give the answer, they say, I get it. Some of you who are in that side, why did you get it? Or it is not so sure why you have to. But you should learn from them. You have some doubt about who you are. Hold it closer. Hold it closer. Closer. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Somebody said that there was a movie made on Cosmology. Yeah. The government the landscape and the active and then we study out, to map and see what was at that time, kind of plan to understand where the big migration happens. Okay. The question is, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana time, I have in mind 30 million BC, 14,000 years ago. Are there any long studies or existing long studies that can be extracted for that time period? Yes and no. There are actually studies which talk about outward migration from India happening around 15,000 years ago. How do we know that? It's done backwards. So take R1 haplogroup. M17 and many others. So they call it coalescence. I make it into too technical. Coalescence. When all those atoms come together in two ways, in space and also in time. And in space, do you know where it comes? If you want to know, always it comes to Iran. But just like the Alexander, who's going to go beyond, okay, it will never come to India. Iran is India then. Iran is India. Then you go to ancient times, like you just go a few hundred years ago, 2000 years ago, Iran is India. And then one of those time will go to 12,000, 15,000, 17,000, 30,000 years. So we have some idea. But don't know exactly how to connect to Ramayana.
Another question. So, thank you.
Thank you, Madhu. And thank you everyone for attending this session. How many of you understand? Everyone? So I should ask other people. So you understand? Oh, that's good. So first of all, आणि ऍक्च्युली ग्रॅज्युएशन म्हणजे मुलाला फॉलो करते I feel well addressed session conducted so this is the justification why Nilesh ji did this session in English. But thank you Nilesh ji. तुम्ही आज session दिलं. तुमच्या बेटा हा अश्विनी is also here, so thank you to all. आणि बेसिकली चिन्मयला आमच्यातर्फे धन्यवाद कळवा. त्याचप्रमाणे तुमचे जे फ्रेंड आहेत ज्यांनी तुम्हाला इथे बोलावून घेतलं I will like त्यांचं नाव मी विसरले बक्षी निशेंद्र बक्षी. सो प्लीज निशेंद्र बक्षी यांना पण आमच्याकडे थँक्यू म्हणा. कारण कुठलाही प्रोग्राम एनी इव्हेंट when it happens we got the sponsorship like flight tickets and the hotel stay everything is covered by Mr. Bakshi and I think Chitman Mission. So thank you to them. आणि निलेश जी आपली एक्सेप्ट केली म्हणून त्यांना आणि अश्विनीला थँक्यू. ऑफकोर्स प्रसाद हे थँक्यू म्हटलेलंच आहे. ऑल ऑफ इंडिया हे व्हेन्यू आम्हाला अवेलेबल करून दिला प्रमोद आणि जे आम्हाला व्हेन्यू अवेलेबल करून दिला त्यांना थँक्यू. माझं कारपूर केलेलं आहे. सो नाही छोट्या छोट्या गोष्टी असतात कामं असतात शेवटी ती केली गेली. फूड टीम आम्हाला हेल्प केले. सो बिफोर यू लिव्ह प्लीज हॅव अ कप ऑफ टी अगेन आणि समोसे पण खाऊन आमचं संप प्रणलेलं आहे सगळ्यांनी जायच्या आधी. आणि डेकोरेशन टीम आणि परंपरा टीम आणि इतिहासाची टीम महाराष्ट्राची आयटी टीम या सगळ्यांना मनपूर्वक धन्यवाद की आजचा कार्यक्रम पहिला 1 तास इतिहास मंचचा होता. खरंच खूप छान झाला आणि निलेशचे विचार खरंच खूप ते आम्हाला वेगळी दिशा देतात. म्हणजे ह्या बाबतीत असं नाही की विचार केलेला नाहीये परत नाही असं नाही पण एक असं विचार करतो बरं हे आपल्याला काही सुचलं. सो तुमचा यामधला अभ्यास दिसून येतो. मनपूर्वक धन्यवाद प्रसाद थँक्यू. दीपा पण थांबले आणि माझ्या मैत्रिणी पण असून मला इथे थांबलेल्या प्रयत्न सगळ्यांना थँक्यू. आणि ऑडियन्सला म्हणजे तुम्ही शांतपणे एखादा ऐकून प्रश्न विचारले त्यामुळे निलेशजीला पण मला असं बरं वाटलं असेल की चला मी नुसतं ऐकलं की नाही होते समोरचे ऐकतात मी काय बोलतोय ते. सो थँक्यू एव्हरीवन. आणि हो झूम मध्ये ज्यांनी सेशन अटेंड केलं त्यांना एकच राहिले शैला ते पण हरकत नाही. झूम मधल्या पण धन्यवाद आणि युट्यूब लाईव्ह सेशन पण आपलं बघतात काही लोक त्यांना पण धन्यवाद. आणि थँक्यू एव्हरीवन अँड लेट्स फॉलो अप अ डे.